Welcome to my slideshow on CSA Farms, Awakening Community Intelligence. My name is Stephen McFadden. By way of background, you should know that I've been observing and writing about and also participating in CSA farming since it took root in the United States back in the late 1980s. I originally prepared this slideshow for Tierra Viva, the Farming the Living Earth conference that was held here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, sponsored by the Biodynamic Association. But considering all that's going on in the world, it felt important to me to make this slideshow available to a wider audience. Okay, here we go. You're looking at an image of a bolo tie that my wife gifted me with, and it seemed to me that it was just the right image to start the slideshow with because, as you can see, Brother Thunderbird, depicted there in the silver engraving, has his wings pulled fully back and he's ready to clap them together and send out a bolt of lightning and thunder to wake people up to what's going on and encourage them to take intelligent and constructive action. So that we have common ground understanding about what CSA is, I offer here a definition drawn from the United States Department of Agriculture and elsewhere, stating that a CSA, Community-Supported Agriculture, is a free will association or community of households, whether those households be in a neighborhood or allied with a church community or at some workplace or some other constellation. But it's a free will community, people who choose to directly support one or more local farms, while the farm commits itself to supporting them with fresh, clean local food. And the growers and the CSA members share both the risks and the benefits of food production. When I offered the workshop, the first third of it was given over to this slideshow, and the remaining 2/3, the group took up a community challenge to tell a story about CSAs and to tell it in such a way that it made common sense and offered positive possibilities. Now, we documented all of the responses from the workshop community, and those exist today in a 3-page document that's available on my Chiron Communications website. You'll find the URL for that website at the end of this slide presentation. So in order to establish a ground for the group discussions in the workshop, I offered a seed thought from the writer and philosopher Rudolf Steiner, who was the initiator of biodynamic agriculture. He gave a series of lectures back in 1924 outlining his insights. And I have to say, over time, they have by and large proved to be very valid insights. I've been involved with organic and biodynamic agriculture since the 1970s and have visited literally hundreds of farms and gardens. And while I can see the radiant strength and beauty in organic production, the distinction and the improvement that comes from biodynamic principles and practices is obvious. So worthwhile here to consider his seed thought that healthy social change results not from imposing a scheme or an idea or some set of rigid principles, but rather from striving to understand what it is that's trying to emerge in a healthy manner from spirit, and then supporting that, cultivating it. In the beginning, back in the late 1980s when CSA sprouted here in the Americas, there was a lot going on. The farm crisis was really cracking through the heart of the North American continent. Environmental contamination was becoming a staple of the news as one incident after another came upon us, and dietary corruption began to become much more obvious, and we saw the beginnings of the epidemics of diabetes, obesity, and a range of degenerative diseases directly associated with poor diet. All of this was going on, and people recognized that there was a better way and that it was up to them to create it. So they joined their initiatives, their new thinking with agrarian wisdom ways, and out of this evolved the CSA vision. Wasn't so much any one person or any one farm here in the States or globally, but rather community. I like to say that community-supported agriculture was a community-derived inspiration. The idea was in the air, and a wide community of people were thinking about it, talking about it, and sharing with each other. And in that context, biodynamic agricultural knowings played a key role. They've somewhat fallen to the side now, but I think it's important to go back and reconsider what some of those initial biodynamic contributions were to the budding CSA movement, which has continued to develop for 30 years now. Well, here's an image from the 1980s, and you can see, and you can probably feel, as I can from the expression on people's faces, how profoundly unsettling it was to have all of the factors, get big or get out mantra that drove so many of these farm families off the land and completely changed the character and constellation of America's rural areas. Well, here you see an image of oil on the water, an image and a reality that has been repeated over and over and over and has become so commonplace in our time as to not necessarily draw the attention that it merits. And of course, starting in the 1980s was the rise of big ag, big food, big pharmaceutical, big chemical, all coming together and going through a process of consolidation and gathering in capital resources and providing an almost unchallengeable competition for the small family farms that had previously been the strength of the nation. This process has not ended. In fact, as you're probably aware from the news, the Monsanto and Bayer corporations are planning a merger. It's still pending, has not yet received all the approvals necessary. Here on the screen is the text of a tweet from Farm Aid sent out in September 2016, and I want to read just the last sentence because it's so potent. Across food and agriculture, the amount of pending mergers and mergers that got green-lighted throughout 2015 and 2016 is phenomenal. It's in the hundreds. So that process is ongoing, a real behemoth of big ag, big food, big chem, and big pharmaceutical, big GMO now. That wasn't a factor in the 1980s, but it certainly is now, and they're all consolidating and interlocking. And this is the part of the context in which CSA exists now. Oh, it's 30 years on since CSA got its start in the USA, and we are in a time of reckoning. There are profound disruptions all around us and in the daily news associated with climate change, resource depletion, environmental contamination, and geopolitical instability. It is my point that in this matrix of reckoning, CSA is a stabilizing and healing element in so many ways because it brings together people to pool their strength, their intelligence, and their resources in the service of clean land, clean water, clean food, and right relationship with one another. Face the facts. The heat is on. 14 of the 15 hottest years on record have occurred since 2000. 2016 will go on record as the hottest year yet. Here's an image of the North Pole, and as you can see, there was open water there in August 2016. Just this morning, I was reading on the internet about a huge chunk of the Larsen ice shelf in Antarctica that is about to break off. So climate change and all the consequences that come from it are very much a part of the hard reality that we're facing now, realities that are difficult to confront as individuals, and in which, when we come together as a community, we have far greater strength and efficacy. Okay, to somewhat pull all of this context together, I want to cite some of the salient reports from the USDA's study on climate change, global food security, and the U.S. food system. The report came out for 2015-2016. It's still valid. And the three key points that I discerned in reading it were that climate change will impact global and local food security, and it will disrupt food prices and availability. But on a positive note, and here's where CSA really comes into the picture, the report stated that effective adaptation can reduce food system vulnerability. Here's what I want communities across the nation and really across the Americas to pay attention to. Effective adaptation. It's time to take note of that possibility and to get into action to realize it. Well, here's an image from Time magazine. I might as well have put up images from the covers of Newsweek, The Economist, or other mainstream magazines, because the mainstream press is finally coming to a level of recognition that capitalism, the unbridled quest for profits, is causing a consequent destruction in the life support systems of our planet. So this isn't a radical idea anymore of some radical person somewhere. This is what's actually going on and is generally recognized in the press. Well, here's a slide to call attention to the fundamental hard reality that communities must respond to circumstances or be overwhelmed. If you see a train coming down the tracks toward you, you better get off. All of the complex circumstances I just outlined are very much a part of our reality, and we do have an opportunity to respond, to adapt effectively, but it's important not just for farmers, but also for communities to be moving forward actively right now. Jocelyn Perot is the General Secretary of Urgency. Urgency is an acronym for an international organization based in France that is supporting the development of CSA farms globally. And he makes interesting comments about CSA and food sovereignty being defined as the right of people to decide upon and have control over their own food systems. It's also the right of farmers to break free from the domination of corporations. In that context, CSA is an enactment of food sovereignty. Well, here's another one of the thoughts that keeps coming back to me over and over, and it is that in the context of the turbulence we're experiencing in our climate, in our economics, in our politics, and our culture, CSA farms provide a useful, healthy, and egalitarian model for responding intelligently. This is a picture of community, of course. It's a photograph that was taken at the Peterborough Historical Society in Peterborough, New Hampshire, where the Peterborough Grange was honoring the farmers of the Temple Wilton Community Farm, one of the first CSAs established in America back in 1986. And you probably cannot see in the photograph, but at the podium is Alice Grow, partner and wife of Trauger Grow, who's sitting in the audience. And Trauger was my co-author on the first two books about CSA. Farms of Tomorrow and Farms of Tomorrow Revisited. And I thought it was especially relevant that the Grange recognized the healthy community and agricultural impulses that have come out of CSA and made a special occasion to honor some of the pioneers. Well, here I've got this slide to make an important distinction between customer subscription agriculture and community-supported agriculture. It's true CSA, community-supported agriculture, has had a lot of competition in recent years and has caused a lot of true CSAs to cease to exist. I define customer subscription agriculture as a marketing model, and CSA is often promoted as if it were some sort of marketing model, but it's not really. It's a community model. Big difference between seeking primarily to derive a profit from the enterprise as opposed to deriving a healthy community that is balanced, well-fed, and financially stable. So there needs to be a distinction between these two models. In Europe, a group of CSA farmers from a great number of nations got together and created a European Csa Declaration setting out the principles and practices that define an authentic community-supported agriculture enterprise. And I'm making that document available on my Chiron Communications website. Once again, URL at the end. While here in the United States, it's late 2016 now as I'm recording this, and Elizabeth Henderson, the author of Sharing the Harvest, has an initiative to establish a community charter for CSAs in the United States. I also have included a draft of that charter on my website, and we'll be hearing more about it as discussion continues and 2017 comes on. So the core ideas of community-supported agriculture, as opposed to the customer subscription agriculture, CSA involves shared risk. The community is actually involved. There's the pursuit of associative economics. I'll say more about that in a minute. And the land is held in trust, or at least the community is contemplating that idea and perhaps working toward holding the land in trust. So important because, of course, one of the great barriers for young farmers who want to pursue their vocation is to acquire land that is suitable for agriculture. And market forces, capitalist market forces, have driven land prices way beyond the reach of most young farmers. Well, I listened a while back to a podcast on a show called Farmer to Farmer, which is a podcast I would definitely recommend to anyone who recognizes the importance of these agrarian initiatives. The one that I listened to it featured Dan Kaplan of Brookfield Farm in Massachusetts, articulating, or I should say re-articulating, a basic idea from biodynamic agriculture. And that is that agriculture in general, and CSA in particular, need to create an economy. When, as is the case now, the economy creates agriculture, then farmers tend to move away from stewardship and towards necessary and fiercely competitive efficiency. But over time, that drains not just the farm and the farmers. Perhaps I'm selling a bushel of peppers for, $1 less than my neighbor farmer down the road. And what is that farmer to do to respond also to slash prices and to look for places to cut corners? And the marketplace can be quite ferocious and relentless in this regard. And we've seen so many farmers over the years driven down by this level of competition. CSA has the potential for associative economics, which is something distinct from capitalism. It's also distinct from socialism or communism because it involves free will association of actors. By actors, I mean in general, the farmers, the families and households who share in the harvest and so forth. And through associative economics, which I'll say a bit more about on the next slide, human values and natural environmental values and considerations come into the economic process. Okay, so what is associative economics? Well, rather than focusing on the single-minded question of how do we make a profit, the people who are involved in a free will associative economic operation ask different questions. What does the farm need? What do the active farmers need? What does the community need? That changes the whole discussion, and it also changes the way that the farm is managed and the food is distributed. So they may seem simple questions, but they cause a profound reordering of the way that one proceeds. Well, here's the big idea of the whole slideshow, the one that I offer to you. CSA, as I have seen and experienced over the decades, it provides a pathway for people to pool their energy, their intelligence, and their resources. So important at this era of our history. Our well-being requires not just intelligent individual actions that any one of us might undertake, but our combined strength, intelligence, and resources, our intelligent free will actions. And so I advocate that we really do need hundreds of thousands of different constellations of community-supported agriculture in different communities. That's the vision. Hundreds of thousands more CSAs. The farmers are not going to make it happen. They're already so greatly burdened with all of the responsibilities that come with managing a farm, whether it be a small 2-acre plot, an urban plot, or a larger farm out in the countryside. It's incumbent upon communities to organize themselves, to step up support, to find farmers who are capable of growing clean, healthy food and stewarding the land, and coming behind them to make it possible for them to do their work. The metaphor I often employ is that the farmers are our ambassadors to the earth. They touch it for us while we may be occupied at a desk or in a factory or on a construction site. The farmers go out onto the land and touch it for us. And if we can support them in doing that, they can do a much better job. So here are the challenge questions that I presented to the workshop. I want to go over them and give you an opportunity to contemplate them. And then I'll present a sampler of how people responded. And once again, you can find the complete set of responses on my Chiron Communications website. So in the context of CSA, what healthy spirit-infused impulses are striving to emerge? How may you cultivate these impulses? And how do communities of human beings become awakened to what the circumstances are and how they might respond intelligently? So here's an image, of course, of great energy coming together in a fantastically beautiful, organized pattern. It's a community of energy that has awakened and is interacting. And I put this up on the screen just as a background while people in the workshop engaged in group discussion. The people who participated in the workshop were quite creative and had dynamic discussions. This slide shows just a few of their responses. If you're seriously interested in CSA, I encourage you to go to my Chiron Communications website and read in the blog the full set of responses, the visions, the story that they told about CSA's necessities and possibilities. I'll quickly go over the slide here to say that the group recognized, importantly, emerging impulses to heal the land and to heal our bodies, and recognition that CSAs promote both land health and human health. Farmers are much better able to recover from the extreme climate events which have become so frequent here, not just in the Americas, but globally. When they have the support of a community, it's tough for them to get things back up and running in any event, but if they are isolated and having to do that on their own, or only seeking government support, the challenge is far greater. When the local community is involved with them and can provide support, it's much more likely that they'll be able to recover in a timely manner from the extreme climate events. Especially in the context of now, core groups can help CSAs cultivate these emerging healthy impulses and provide a lot more support to the farm so that it can succeed in its mission. Even though there are many different constellations of CSAs, no two CSAs are alike. They're all, of course, adapted to the people who are involved and to the land that's involved. But a core group can almost always be of helpful support. The workshop group recognized that it's generally crisis that causes individuals and communities to wake up to what's going on, but that also dialogue and education are important factors, and that people can learn from existing models and act intelligently for an effective adaptation to the hard realities of climate economics and politics that are so much a part of our world today. So for CSAs, partnerships with businesses, churches, and neighborhoods, whether they're in a city or in a suburban community or even a neighborhood association or a homeowners association, can help build awareness of CSA and help establish the CSA model as an effective adaptation in our era. This slide lists some of the books that I have authored, those relating directly to CSA in particular and agrarian themes in general. In closing out, I'd like to quote Winona LaDuke of the organization Honor the Earth. She came to Santa Fe earlier this year, and in her presentation, she remarked that this is a time when we can do something great or we can wither. I have long seen CSA as an opportunity for many hundreds of thousands of us to do something great. And so I encourage you to look more deeply into the opportunities and the possibilities represented by community-supported agriculture. Well, thank you for going through the slideshow and taking time to consider all of these ideas. It may look from this slide as if Chiron Communications is a huge multinational corporation, but actually it's just me as sole proprietor sitting here at my laptop. You can find a lot more information about CSA farms and other subjects on my website. So once again, thanks for listening and good luck going forward.